We are heading down to my neck of the woods, heading to Dallas, Texas, where you will find Big Tex. You'll find some of the best fried food you've ever had. Fried food so good, you're almost happy it's killing you. And the historic Cotton Bowl at Fair Park, where you will find once again Texas versus Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry, the Red River shootout. We're excited for this one. Obviously, first iteration of this one in the SEC. And pretty big stakes in this one. I think a lot of people coming in to the season didn't expect a bunch out of Oklahoma. They have a tough schedule, turning a lot of stuff over. New quarterback they're trying to figure out. He didn't work out. But now they get a new guy in Michael Hawkins Jr. that looked pretty good against Auburn. But they come into this one. This will be 2:30 on ABC. My big question for this one is all about Quinn Ewers, right? Quinn Ewers injured the last several weeks, coming back off of that injury. But game speed and practice speed and health versus like actually feeling good, those are all very relative terms. And I'm curious to see how Quinn Ewers is going to look coming out of this one. I guess the big question for me and the big question going into this one, not just about Quinn, but will Texas, if Quinn comes out maybe a little slow, what is the pressure on Texas to go to Arch? How do they handle all that? I'm curious to kind of see what your thoughts are on the Texas offense and how they're going to look with Quinn.
Yeah, that's I think that's the big point here, right? Is how healthy is he if he's not 100%? We're talking about an Oklahoma defense that even after getting shredded a little bit by Auburn last week, I think they had 500 yards almost in that game. Oklahoma's still 42nd in total defense, but they're fifth in the country in sacks. So they're certainly going to get after you. And if you get a weird hit early in the game, you get hit a little hard, land a little funky on that arm, how are you feeling after that? Because certainly Arch has come in and he's done nothing to quiet the calls for the move over to him. I mean, he's been statistically dominant this year. Again, level of competition, not the greatest, but there's something to be said for coming in and taking care of business. So I think that could potentially be a fascinating subplot in this game, particularly if, we're talking about a 10-7, 14-10 game at halftime. Texas is struggling to move the ball. Does the crowd start to get a little antsy? How does that affect the team if they're kind of noticing, hey, the vibes in the stadium aren't necessarily the best right now. It's one of those things though, that, I mean, if you're confident as a Texas staff that Quinn is healthy, he's shown you nothing so far this year to question having him in there, right?
Right. Yeah, so, he's got to be the guy, right? I mean, you don't lose your starting job unless the backup clearly takes it from you. Mm-hmm. And Quinn's no scrub. He's not a bad quarterback. And in a game that is rarely a blowout, right? It's happened. We've seen blowouts in this game, but this game is rarely a blowout. And it also rarely matters who the better team is. This game is almost always close. And you'll see teams play up or down to the other guy that you'll see, and especially in a rivalry game, you'll see guys come up and down from that. This game, I think, is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect. The line here is at -14. I don't see a way for Oklahoma to not cover that. I know people are in love with Texas's offense, but Oklahoma, like you said, pretty solid defense there. For me, the big question comes on the other side of the football where, if you're Oklahoma, I mentioned it off the top, Jackson Arnold did not work out. That game against Tennessee kind of brought out some stuff and exposed him. And so they've turned to Michael Hawkins Jr. And he didn't necessarily do anything special against Auburn, but he looked good in the limited opportunities. I think he threw 15 passes and completed 10 of them and, led drives and did what he needed to do. He had that 2-point conversion as well, where he kind of jumps over everybody, gets the inspired look, right? And the whole team gets around him and hypes him up. So, if you had a new guy like that, not the guys that, Texas clearly was planning for, both teams coming off a bye week, so you got a little film on him, but not the guy you came into the season thinking you were playing. But Texas comes in with a number 2 scoring defense, again, like Ohio State, not having really played anybody. I'm curious what you think about that side of the ball. Can Oklahoma do anything on that side of the ball? Are they going to be able to score points at all? What's the path? What's the path for them to score points?
Well, you got to hope that Deion Burks is healthy. Because otherwise it's however good Michael Hawkins is, if he doesn't really have anyone to throw the ball to, that's not going to help a lot. So, and I think they just actually released the availability report. So Anderson's out, Gibson's still out, Anthony's still out, Farouk is still out, and they said Burks is a game time decision. So, I mean, if he comes back, then you at least have a weapon out wide to throw to, but we've already seen Texas shut down a Michigan offense this year that does not have a functional passing game, and they certainly run the ball better than Oklahoma has this year. So
Right.
it's probably going to take getting creative with the quarterback run game, rolling Michael Hawkins out, giving him kind of that, hey, here's your one read. If it's not open, just take off and try to get something type of offense, a little backyard football, if you will. But it's going to be tough sledding for them to score because, I mean, it's still a good Texas D. Even if the level of competition so far hasn't been great, it's still going to be a tough D to score against. So I'm kind of with you on this. I think it's going to be uncomfortably close from a Texas fan perspective. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I struggle to see a path for Oklahoma to score enough to get past Texas, regardless who's playing quarterback for the Longhorns.
Definitely. Yeah, I think Oklahoma, the key for them is going to be try to make Texas one-dimensional. This is one of the big places I want to key in on that Texas offense. None of the Longhorns running backs have really impressed me that much this year. They've got talent back there, but nobody's really stood out as like, oh, you got to know where this guy is. Watch him coming out of the backfield. He's a serious difference maker, right? And none of them have really shown me enough of that consistently to think that Texas is going to do enough in the run game. So for me, I'm looking at this saying Oklahoma, plug up those lanes early and turn Texas into a one-dimensional team as quick as you can, because you got to force some mistakes. You got to try to get an interception, pick a ball off, get a short field, right? Something like that, because, yeah, you're probably right. There's not a lot of ways that I think they move the ball consistently on this Texas defense. I think we're both probably on Texas to win this one. I'd be surprised if you're on Oklahoma on this one. Do you think Texas covers this 14?
No, I think it'll probably end up being a little bit lower scoring than we're probably anticipating. Probably a real mucky, grimy type of game. Probably not too all that dissimilar from what we just were talking about with Ohio State and Oregon. So I think Texas probably scores in the upper 20s. And I mean, maybe Oklahoma gets a late score to kind of backdoor cover this one. But I think Oklahoma covers, but I don't know that it's necessarily kind of a game that's ever really in doubt.
Yeah, Texas, by far the more talented team here. I think the better coach team, more, further along in their program at the very least. And yeah, I just think the Texas too much for this one. I don't think that they cover that 14. I think they probably pull away a little bit late, maybe get into a, needing to extend, kick a field goal to put it out of reach type of thing, lead by 10 at the end of the game, something like that. I think they can probably win this one by about 10 over Oklahoma, but I would be surprised if they pull away and win this one by a large margin. Though I guess after last Saturday, anything could happen, and maybe this is just another crazy SEC weekend.
Gracious, how about